who aren't showing symptoms and that can easily spread it.
And that's all for now. We'll have news again at 9.
News Talk Weather.
Thanks to the AA. Great value annual travel insurance that covers you even before you go.
Patchy light rain tonight in the east and south, but otherwise mostly dry. Lowest temperatures of 4 to 6 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
Hey, welcome back. In the first hour there, we talked to Paul Rouse. We're going to start a little lecture Q&A type series with Paul next week. Somebody says from someone who had the pleasure of taking Paul's module in UCD, I will gladly sit through another 10 lectures. Can't wait for them. Okay, good stuff. Dan McDonnell, I think, also sat through that Sport and Ireland module. He's on the football show between 9 and 10, as is Pat and Evan. That is all on the way. In the meantime, it's time for Monday Night Rugby.
Monday Night Rugby on Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us, everyone in.
Okay, we are live on the air. We may have a few teething problems. Ian Madigan, we're hoping, is dialed in. Ian, I don't know if you can hear me. You may not be able to. Okay, we'll take a very short break. Apologies, we're getting Ian Madigan up. I can see him, he just can't hear me. So we'll get Ian Madigan up. He'll be along in 2 seconds. And then between 8:30 and 9 o'clock or so, earlier on today, OTBAM had Brian Farrell on. Brian Farrell plays for Meath. Paul Gainey was on as well. Obviously brilliant Kerry footballer as well. The two lads also work in the pub trade, so they were talking to Owen Sheehan and to Nathan Murphy this morning about the situation facing them and many others. So, short, quick break, and then I promise you we'll have Ian Madigan in just 1 sec.
Sexton. Push Ireland back into a 9-point advantage. Pull that slightly, more than slightly. It's a bad miss from one of the best kickers in the world. Dupont, Teddy Thomas, space in front of Thomas. He could go through the middle here. Teddy Thomas for the line, and over he goes. Try for France, and the lead is won. Lost now. Last ounces of reserve are being eked out now. They're leaving nothing behind them, this Ireland team, in a bid to force the opening, but neither are the French.
On est à la 83e face à l'Irlande. Anderson.
The point at which a drop goal becomes possible.
Attention le drop, il arrive.
Sexton from outside the 10-metre line.
Sexton waits, here it comes.
It's spinning, it's spinning.
It looks good.
Le drop de Jonathan Sexton.
Right to Owen's arm, goes out.
Jonathan Sexton has made it.
Il est là. Jonathan Sexton à la dernière seconde crucifie l'équipe de France.
Ireland have stolen the game.
He has snatched victory from the jaws of defeat for Ireland. The full-time whistle is gone. And Ireland have beaten the French by 2 points.
C'est terrible. Terrible.
What a strike from distance. Just creeps over. Incredible.
Night Rugby on Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us, everyone in.
Returning to our top story this morning, and that is confirmation of the first case of COVID-19 in the Republic.
We know we're some weeks behind Italy. Just how far we are remains to be seen.
40 new cases were confirmed yesterday, bringing the total number to 169.
Europe has now become the epicenter of the pandemic.
Will I go to Dubai? Will I go to the wedding? Should such and such go ahead? If in doubt, don't do it.
The majority of people are doing their best, and there's others that could be best described as idiots.
We're in a whole new world in a way.
Be very careful where you get your information from. Trust your government here, trust government agencies, trust the HSE. Please ignore rumours.
Stay ahead of the real story with News Talk.
We will stay responsible. We will stay on the right side of all of this.
Monday Night Rugby on Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us, everyone in.
Now you're welcome back. So hopefully take two is going to work a treat. Ian Madigan, can you hear me?
I can. How are you?
Good man. I could see you on Skype, but something was not happening.
Yeah, I don't think the audio was working, but anyway, we're on now. Thanks a million for having me on. It's great
It's great to have you on.
back on the show.
Yeah, good to have you on. A good old-fashioned telephone, so that'll see us through. You are moving to Ulster from Bristol. That was the news that's come through. Now, I'm not quite sure when your new season with Ulster is going to start because we're living through very changeable times, to say the least. But tell us about the move. You were looking to get home, clearly. How long has this been in the offing? What's the general timeline and all this?
I was on Luke Fitzgerald's show not too long ago, and came up with what my intentions would be. And obviously, I've been away for the last 4 years, and I felt it was the right time to be heading home. And I was just hopeful that I could get picked up by one of the Irish provinces. And I was lucky enough that Ulster showed a bit of interest, so I called over, or was invited over a couple of weeks ago and met with Dan McFarland and Dwayne Peel, and I was really impressed with the vision they have for the club and the style of play that they want to be playing, and obviously like the facility they have up there is world class, and blessed that they've got such a loyal supporter fan base, and luckily there's a few familiar faces there as well, which make it easier for me to fit in, which is great and something I'm really looking forward to.
Oh, well, the Leinster lads are taking over. John Cooney, Jordy Murphy, Jack McGrath, Marty Moore, Ian Madigan. Here we go. How does all that work then? Do you have an agent? Do you get in touch with Dan McFarland and say, hey, listen, I'm available? Do you go centrally to the IRFU and say, look, I'd love to come home. Can you keep me in mind? How do you almost initiate a move?
Yeah, it's kind of different for each player. I suppose when you're a bit older, you can kind of draw on the contacts you have within the game, previous coaches you've had or previous players you've played with that are now in the coaching game. And you can reach out to them and let them know that, you're off contract and you'll be looking elsewhere. So, what I've always done is I keep the rugby part very separate. So when I was over talking with, Dan and Dwayne, it was just really talking about rugby and, how it could fit into their environment and how I could work well in their team. And then I suppose once, those kind of conversations have been had, it gets passed over then, and, your agent works out the deal, the length of the deal and the details that go into that. And I think it's important that that's kept separate so you can, maintain the rugby relationship with your head coach and then, what's gone on in the background is kept separate.
And why is now the time to move home?
That's a good question. I suppose that the last year in Bristol has been a frustrating one, and I feel like I'm in the prime of my career, and I've had limited opportunities this year, so I knew pretty early on in the season that a move would most likely be on the cards. I still hold ambitions of putting on a green jersey again, and I think it's no secret that the best way of doing that is to be playing for one of the Irish provinces and playing well. I've been very impressed with how Ulster have played over the last couple of seasons. The age profile of their squad and what they're building towards, and their ambition to be winning trophies. And when I'm getting into the the last part of my career, that's something that I really wanted to be involved in, and thought it was a great opportunity to head back to the Emerald Isle.
Yeah, I guess there's a now or never element to it. To just remind people, I know you're obviously very aware of this, but you left in 2016 after that tour, South Africa, the last time you played for Ireland, and went to Bordeaux. Spent a season there. Was that enjoyable? Because I from memory, that was an injury-plagued time for you, and maybe you struggled for rhythm, or have I got that wrong?
No, you're fairly spot on there. It was an enjoyable year in the sense that I learned a lot. About myself, and it really made me kind of mature. And I was lucky that I met some great people along the way, both within the rugby environment and outside of it. Rugby-wise, it wasn't a complete disaster. I got off to a very good start of the year. Was really enjoying playing in a different team and a different style of play. But yeah, unfortunately, I picked up a nasty groin injury and we also kind of lost form as a team, and we're put under pressure in that sense. And then there was, I think I had 3 different coaches in the 1 year that I was there, which wasn't ideal.
Why 3?
Well,
got the chop.
One of them got the chop, and then they had a guy in covering, and then they brought in a more long-term guy towards the end of the season. So
it's a bit messy.
It was quite disjointed. And then, managing the injury was the first time I've been very lucky in my career. I've had, very few injuries. It was the first time I kind of picked up one that was quite serious and was, hampering me in how I was training, but I was still able to continue. Now, in hindsight, I should have pulled out.
That can be a very frustrating, frustrating thing, because you're not giving the best account of yourself, but you're kind of okay to keep hanging on in there and taking along. When you say you matured a little bit, did you go over there on your own? Is this like Ian Madigan alone in an apartment and he's not too sure how to turn on the cooker? Like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, he's still not too sure how to turn on the cooker. But I went over initially on my own, and then my now fiance Anna joined me after a couple of months, just once I'd settled in, and she's been with me now, for all the time in Bristol, which has been great. She really keeps the show on the road, which is brilliant, especially when you're away from home and you don't have friends and family to draw on. Having that kind of positive influence when you come back in after a tough day it has been great. But I suppose when we went over to France initially, when you're in Leinster and living in Dublin, everything's really laid on for you. The club looks after you fantastically well. At whatever 25, 26, you're heading over there. You've got to organise getting all your stuff there, getting an apartment sorted, and building a sustainable life for yourself over there. Just being a bit more organised in everything you do. Meeting 50 new guys within a squad, learning a new language. It was something I kind of really engulfed myself in, and was quite proficient at speaking French after a couple of months. But that whole process was great for giving me a wider outlook on life and just, I suppose, maturing a bit.
I'm sure, like if we're talking in real terms and honestly here, if Johnny Sexton wasn't one of the best players in the world and wasn't at Leinster, you would have stayed at Leinster and ideally played at 10 there for years and years. But you clearly wanted to play first team rugby and to develop your game. You go, I presume, with the knowledge that the international setup is something you're most likely leaving behind. I suspect it never felt like a live option that you would be picked for Ireland once you went. I was very happy in Leinster and, left there on great terms, and, I loved my time there. But, the thing was, when I was there initially, breaking through into the team, you're kind of happy out being involved in 23s and starting, 5, 10, 15 games a year. And then the 2 years when Johnny was away, I was starting the majority of games with, Jimmy Gopper, at either at 10 or 12, and I was happy out doing that. But then when you get to, 25, 26, you're not as happy then to sit on the bench. You're more ambitious. You want to be the guy driving the team on each week, having an influence with the coaches on, how you play. And that was something that I really desired. And that was, a big reason why I wanted to leave and ultimately move to France. But it was a big decision at the time. You moved to Bristol then after that year in Bordeaux. I didn't really see many of the games, to be fair, but I reliably told you played really well in the promotion campaign at Bristol, and that obviously all went very well. In terms of falling down the pecking order, Callum Sheedy became a factor. He emerged as a player and seems to have done well there. Did that happen all at kind of once, as in, overnight you're suddenly out of favour, or was it more of a gradual thing, in for a game, out for a game, a bit of a Sexton O'Gara type fight to the death situation? How did you kind of fall out of favour at Bristol as the years went on?
I suppose that the first year and a half, I was kind of the main man there and starting all the games.
And really enjoyable, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was. It was great. Like even I look back on the championship year, and while it wasn't the top level and far from it, Bristol as a club needed that year in the championship to kind of reset itself and build the foundations that has ultimately been a big part of our success over the last few months. And then when we made the step up to the Premiership, it was great. Like, there's, massive excitement, and, they hype up the Premiership, and it is a brilliant tournament. And then I suppose halfway through last season, I picked up one or two niggly injuries. I broke my collarbone, which probably wasn't at the most opportune time. And then the team was struggling a bit. Went on a bit of a losing streak. And then I found myself kind of getting rotated then, starting some games, subbing other games.
Yeah.
And then, we caught form again towards the end of the year. And, even if I was subbing, I was coming on and influencing games with 20 minutes to go. And, you feel if you're doing that, you're happy enough, you're still involved in the 23. You have a big say on things. Obviously, you'd rather be starting. But, and then I suppose the change was really, really this year. And looking back, in hindsight, signing a 2-year deal would have been ideal because, they've a young guy coming through who's very good. Callum's done a fantastic job. So, what they need is, 3 years ago, in bringing me in isn't necessarily needed now. Okay. And with the constraints of, the salary cap and that kind of thing, they are always looking to youth and homegrown players to be able to, drive the team forward to, keep the salary cap free. So I kind of got a sense of that pretty quickly at the start of this year that I wasn't in the future plans of the club, which was tough to take at the time. But I suppose you just got to dust yourself off and try and look at the bigger picture. That it's not necessarily that you're a bad player or the club doesn't think highly of you, but it's also the business side of it. They're looking to the future, and even this year, then I wasn't in the 23 for some games because they're trying to bring another young guy through who's very talented. But I suppose as the season's gone on, I've worked my way back into the side, which has been satisfying. And throughout the whole thing, I've maintained the relationship with the coaches, which is
I was going to ask about that.
Could have gone, could have gone there.
Yeah, that was actually literally the next question. Pat Lam, we all know him well, well liked in these parts, and yet him not picking you must be a strain on the relationship. So you were conscious of not turning sour. Yeah,
Pat's a fantastic coach, and what he did in Connacht was an incredible achievement. And he's come over to Bristol, and what he's built over the last 2.5 seasons is really impressive. From a club that couldn't really get any sort of consistency going to now be sitting in third in the league. But it was really tough when I'll never forget the first game of the season when I wasn't picked in the 23, and I would have hoped to have been starting the game, and would have thought that I was going to be in with a chance of starting, to then not being in the 23 was tough going. But
how was that broken to you, Ian?
Yeah, sorry.
How was that broken to you?
Probably not in the best way, but we won't get into that. I suppose no matter what way you get that information, it's not
that sounds like it was announced to the room and you were finding out with the room.
Yeah, probably that. Yeah.
Right.
So, but look, that's professional sport. It's. I think no matter how you're going to find that information out, whether it's one-on-one in a meeting or in a bigger group, it wasn't going to be a particularly enjoyable process. But it did sting a bit.
I'm sure it did. Professional sport's ruthless business. Like there are no two ways about it, and these things happen to players along the line for sure. I suspect it was. So the 80 minutes where you're not playing, that's a sickener. You're sitting there, you're kicking your heels, you're either on the bench or worse, you're sat in the stands or at home and hating the world. I would think as well, it's also really miserable on a Tuesday where you're trying to motivate yourself to train and you're not playing the following weekend.
Yeah, very much so. Like getting picked in the 23 gives you a focus to your week, and when you're not in that playing group, you need to try and find other areas to motivate yourself, and that's something that I've tried to do throughout the year. And I suppose one of the positives from not playing as much is, I've been able to condition myself and make sure that I've ironed out any previous injuries that I've had. And, I'm currently, I feel like I'm in, the best shape of my life. So, I suppose as well, you just kind of reassure yourself that what one team needs at a given time might be very different to what another team needs at a given time. And I suppose when you're a foreigner within a team, that can happen to you. But you just try and maintain that belief in yourself and what you're doing, and continue to work hard and believe that the chances are going to come. And I still did think, and I still do think now, I don't know what's going to happen with the season this year, but I had really hoped that the second half of the season things were really going to come good for me. Whether it was playing at out half or in the centre, or coming off the bench and influencing games. And I did feel that the tide had turned with the coaches and in the team, that I was definitely going to be getting more opportunities in the second half of the season. But I'm not sure if they're going to go ahead now.
No, it's looking ominous to say the least. I would always just think of you as an out half. How do you see yourself?
Yeah, I very much view myself as an out half, but I really enjoy, like, if I'm playing in the centre and it's more of a kind of second set of hands, and encouraging the team to get the ball to width, and finding moving the point of contact. If I have a big ball carrying 13 playing with me to do the hard job.
I'll be the playmaker. Just let me do the nice stuff. You
let me
run
do
at
the
him.
fun stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, like, it works a treat for England. I mean, when they're in full flow and they've got the balance of Ford and Tuilagi and Farrell, it can be devastating.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, no, it is very enjoyable, and I think from playing out half and playing in different positions in the back line, you get a good understanding of what your out half needs, in certain situations, and having played there and then playing at 12, you can kind of keep feeding that information in and make his job as easy as possible.
So what impact has all this had in your game when you're exposed to different cultures, different ideas, different coaches, even 3 in one season? In some respects, on the face of it, you could say, well, that's just good, that's just positive, you learn more about the game in different ways. I would also think that the roller coaster that you've been on could potentially be not so positive and could leave you doubting yourself, or a bit, confused almost about how you see the game or how you see yourself. As you return back and you look on the last 3.5 years, what impact do you feel they have had on you as a player?
Well, I think I can kind of look back now, and look at it from a big picture. And, when I was in Leinster and how they played and the coaches that I had there, I thought we had very good balance in our game plan. And with that, you've got obviously, set systems of, how you use your forwards, what areas of the pitch you want to be playing, how much you kick the ball, all that kind of thing. And Leinster have continued to have great balance in that, and it's been a big part of their success. And when I moved to France, it was the jouer slogan that's used all the time. It's much less on the system side and much more on getting the right guy on the ball in a certain area and expecting that he's going to make something happen. Now as a 10, it's quite difficult playing in that. Because you don't really know what players are going to do. And then now that I've moved to Bristol over the last 2 or 3 seasons, we're very much a systems-based team. We have a set system for literally every facet of the game, and each player from 1 to 15 knows exactly what they've got to do in every situation. Now, what I'd say with all that is, none of them are necessarily right. But for me to be able to pick up on the good stuff and realise, what could work better, and building that as I've gone along over the last 5 or 6 years, I feel I have a good understanding now of what balance is needed between getting the right guys on the ball, but also having a good system that everyone knows roughly what the game plan is going into a match.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. Like, in some respects, the journey you've taken primes you to be a coach down the line if it's something you want to do, because you've experienced as a player these different approaches. Like, the jouer thing sounds fun. I get the appeal of that, and there's a certain romance to it. But if you're against a very organised defence and you're playing with 2 fellas that you don't have an instant telepathic relationship around you, I'd say you can look very ordinary very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And what works for you one week won't work for you another week. Whereas, if you have a game plan that you think you've got good balance in your game, there's a set system to it, you can go into a match with real confidence going, well, if we just do what we've been doing for the last few weeks, it's going to work again. Whereas with the jouer, when you fall on tough times, as you inevitably will, you can't just tweak things. You can't just tweak the system and, come up with fixes. You're more just, looking for guys to come up with more spectacular moments, which doesn't exactly instill the changing room with confidence.
We've seen Galtier come in, obviously, and Sean Edwards is the major addition in some respects to the French international setup. When you were at Bordeaux, or if you're getting a feel for the culture of rugby in France at the moment, were they as players still very happy with the jouet approach, or were they almost looking at, say, the Grand Slam success of a very organised team like Ireland and looking at World Rugby generally, which is more systems-based, and almost thinking, we're missing a trick here, we're behind the curve, we need to become more systematic? What did you feel was the feeling in the dressing room, in the French dressing room?
Yeah, like they definitely are open enough to be able to realise, what teams in the UK or Ireland are doing. They can definitely learn from it. But they've phenomenal self-belief, and they fully believe that what they're doing over there is the best. And good on them for that. And you can see why they've can be so successful. What I'd also say about them as well, they're phenomenal athletes. With their population size and how active they are and how big rugby is in France. They have a massive pool to pick from. So the jouet system they have works. Now, obviously, we've seen more systems come in place with them this year, but it works because they've got incredible athletes executing the game plan.
Yeah.
Whereas with Ireland, for example, we're more relying on a good system, breaking teams down, relying on everyone stepping up physically, and then trying to tee up, big moments, getting someone like Jordan Larmour or Robbie Henschel one-on-one, and then, allowing them to work their magic then. But you quite often find that that's pre-planned, like that's something that you've worked on throughout the week. It's not a case of just get Fakatawa the ball 15 times and he'll come up with something 5 times,
Yeah, I could coach that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, that's how simple it is, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah. But sure, even with us with Bristol, like there'd be times when you'd just be thinking, just get the ball to Charles. They'll make something happen.
Oh, Piatow, of course. Yeah, is he still a sensation in every way?
Yeah, like he's incredible.
Yeah.
His lateral movement and his acceleration. He just makes defenders look silly, and he's the ability to go over you as well because he's incredibly strong. So, he's an absolute joy to play with.
I'm sure he is. Our time is coming to a close. Our rugby coverage is with thanks to Vodafone, team of us, everyone in. We're talking with Ian Madigan. If you're just tuning in, he's on the way back to Irish rugby with Bristol for the last 3 years and now hooking up with Ulster. What is the... I was about to say, what is the plan, which in the current circumstances is the most pointless question. But if ultimately things progress as they will you move will you stay in Bristol for a while? Will you come back to Dublin for a summer and beyond? Will you try and get set up in Belfast straight away? What are you thinking?
Well, our season's just been suspended now for 5 weeks, but it's hard to see how it's going to play out. It's probably more likely than likely that we won't play again this season. But for me, I'll move from Bristol straight to Belfast and get set up there, and then I'll probably spend a bit of time in Dublin in the time off. But no, Belfast will very much be my new home moving forward.
Okay, good man. Well, listen, congrats on the move back, and we'll be talking to you, I suspect, across the next couple of years. Cheers, Ian.
Yeah, great. Thanks a million for having me on the show.
Cheers. No, not at all. Thanks for coming on. Ian Madigan there on the move back to Ulster Rugby for next season. Short break.
Monday Night Rugby on Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us. Everyone in.
Have a great evening with itsforwomen.ie. Great value car insurance on the web,